Hey, are you using Cursor, the code editor? I started using this a few months, around midway through 2024. I had dabbled with it the year before when it was really new, but it didn't really stick for me back then. But in 2024 and now here in 2025, it has really solidified itself in my workflow when I'm coding and building products, especially with Ruby on Rails. I'm going to talk through some of my customizations and some of my key workflow habits and settings that I've set up in Cursor to really speed up and make my workflow in Cursor really comfortable and efficient and fast, because I spend almost all of my workday every day in Cursor. If you're not familiar with Cursor, you should check it out. It's at cursor.com. It is a product that is essentially a fork of the popular VS Code editor from Microsoft. So VS Code is actually an open source, free to use code editor. It's been very popular and really used by a lot of web developers. I was using VS Code for maybe about a year before switching to Cursor. And before that, I had been sort of like jumping around between VS Code, and I was trying RubyMine from JetBrains. And before that, for many years, I was using Sublime Text, which I really loved. But now I've really settled on Cursor, obviously for the AI integration. I found that this is by far the best integration of AI in the coding workflow. And now, if you're like me and you build products and you've been a designer and developer before the AI revolution, I know a lot of developers who are sort of hesitant or slow to really embrace AI in the workflow. And I too was a little bit slow to pick it up because I was so comfortable just building code the way that I know how. But I have found that integrating AI into my workflow has been a massive power up, or even like an unlock to really producing some excellent products, not just at record breaking speeds of being able to build and ship stuff, but it sort of opens up so many more possibilities because of how efficient I am in using AI to really like collaborating with large language models to build out products, which sort of like unlocks new ideas for products and features as I build, ideas that I wouldn't have been able to get to or meander my way to in the pre-AI days. That's a philosophical discussion for another day. But I just wanted to say that, for a while there, I was doing the thing where I would, go to ChatGPT and I would, generate some code and copy it and then paste it into my project. But the thing that really pushed me to start using Cursor specifically is for the integrated AI chat assistant directly in the application. First of all, it's convenient, just being able to chat and generate some code and then copy it from the chat right into your projects. That's a lot faster and more streamlined. But of course, the big selling point with Cursor is that it is integrated with your code base. So you can let the large language model be trained on the files in your actual project, and it can reference things without having to do the whole dance where I would have to like copy parts of my project, into ChatGPT and then have ChatGPT analyze those and give me some response on how to edit it and copy it back into my project. It was a whole song and dance. Anyway, Cursor is a much faster and more streamlined workflow for using AI. But in this video, I'm not going to give you a whole like tutorial on how to use Cursor. It's pretty intuitive on its own, but I do want to, and maybe you already see it already on my screen, I have customized my workspace and my shortcuts and my workflows in a bunch of ways that have really made my workflow really comfortable and efficient. So let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to talk through is the actual workspace layout itself. I've done a few customizations. I want to give some credit to Caleb Porzio, the creator of Livewire in the Laravel ecosystem. He's produced a lot of really valuable stuff, but one thing that he came out with a few years back was a course called Make VS Code Awesome. Really helpful course. I got a lot of these tips on how to like customize the keyboard shortcuts and the layout in VS Code. And the good news is that all those layouts and keyboard shortcuts and settings can be ported right into Cursor, because Cursor itself, again, is a fork of VS Code. So you can literally take your settings and key bindings from VS Code and bring them right into Cursor. Cursor even has a setting somewhere in the cursor settings. Where is it? I don't know. It's somewhere in here. I'm not going to find it right now, but you can like import your VS Code settings directly into Cursor. Yeah, the first thing I'm going to talk through are a couple of the key workspace layout customizations that I've made in Cursor. The first thing you might notice is that the File Explorer is on the right. It's kind of weird. Everyone's usually used to having the File Explorer here on the left side. I like to put it on the right. And again, this was a tip that I got from Caleb, because before we even get into the AI stuff, just having the I don't know, they call this the workbench, I think, or the File Explorer. I can pop it open and pop it closed with Command B, or I can focus it with Command Option E. I like it on the right side because it doesn't like shift my whole coding editor, left and right when I open and close it. It's just a little tab that slides in and out from the right side of the screen. So I just like that layout. The AI chat window is on my left side. Now, I think that too is a customization. Normally, that is on the right side, I believe, by default when you first install Cursor. So I'm going to look at my keyboard, or no, I'm going to go into my user settings JSON. You can do Command-Shift-P and then search for preferences, open user settings, and that'll bring you to this JSON file where you can customize your settings. I'm not going to go into all these lines. A lot of these were taken from that VS Code course by Caleb Porzio. One thing that I'm highlighting here is this line where it says workbench sidebar location right. So if I comment that out and save it, we get back to the more of like the normal, like the default, the default layout of Cursor with the files on the left side. And if I get rid of it, you can see that it sort of pushes my code left and right, and that's a little distracting. So I got used to having that on the right side, just like that. So you have the code editor stays in one place. Now, of course, when I start using the AI chat, it does do that thing where it shifts the code into the middle and then back to the left. But the chat interface, unlike the File Explorer, which I tend to leave open most of the time, only in rare cases when I want the full screen to be all of my code. Normally I just keep the AI chat closed most of the time and the File Explorer open most of the time, so that I can, not quickly when I have a microphone in front of me, apparently. But I can kind of, quickly navigate my files. And I've been starting to really kind of train myself on using the keyboard as much as possible. So to focus my File Explorer on the right side, I do Command-Shift-E. I can do Command down to like open, or just the right arrow will open a file, and I can just go up and down like that. Or if I want to kind of like jump down to the views, I'll just click V. And then if I want to jump down to the shared folder or the sessions folder, I'll click S. And so that's how I can sort of jump around. And then I can do, Control Shift Up will kind of collapse back all of my files. So those are some keyboard shortcuts that I use all the time. And then the other one, of course, is Command L. And that is to pop open the chat window. Again, by setting this to right, or I think if you also set it to false, that it'll sort of swap the sides of the File Explorer and the chat window. The other one, of course, is terminal on the bottom. So Command T will pop open my terminal. So all the time throughout my workflow, when I'm working in code, I'm doing Command L to pop open and close the chat window. I'm doing Command T to open and close the terminal window on the bottom. And sometimes I'm doing Command B to close and open the Explorer window, but that is mostly left open. And if I need to focus it, I'll do Command-Shift-E to get to it and navigate it. And I can either click Escape or Command-Shift-E again to get back into my code. Another one, this is a big one. Again, it was a tip that I got from Caleb Porzio's course, and that is no tabs. You might have noticed that across the top here, we're not seeing all that horizontal never-ending list of tabs. That's just impossible to navigate. It's just a lot of visual clutter. I don't like it. So how do I actually tab between my files? Command P. So you can use Command P to just search for a file, right? Like application controller. But you can also use Command P to just tab through your recent files, just like you're tabbing through the horizontal tabs. Just Command P, you get back to the most recent one. So this list just keeps growing and growing, and I don't care, because at the top of this list are always my most recently used files. So all the time I'm just going like Command P to get back to the most recent file, or maybe Command P a few times to get 3 or 4 files ago to like jump between them. Really, really easy to use. It obviously moves a lot of the visual clutter out of the way, but I just find it easier to like see my files in a vertical list instead of trying to like parse all the different tabs and sort of like organize them. Like I want these on the left and these on the right. It's way too much visual and mental clutter, if you will. Minimize noise. So, getting back to my settings, but the user settings, you'll see this like long list of settings, and a lot of stuff is set to false. Most of that is turning off the noise. And again, I want to give credit to Caleb Porzio for this one. Most like VS Code, as powerful as it is, and again, Cursor is built on VS Code. As powerful as VS Code is, it's like too much power and too many bells and whistles. And sometimes they are like literally like light bulbs and highlights and boxes and pop-ups and popovers and all these different things that like pop up all over the screen whenever you're clicking around. And like most of that is not needed and not actually helpful. So we turn most of it off with all these lines. I'm not going to go into all of them, but in general, you'll see that my view of my code is generally pretty clean. There's not a lot of stuff kind of popping over it. I like the little automatic highlights. If I highlight that keyword, it's going to show up over there, but I try to keep it minimal. Customized colors. So let's see. I'm using the Monokai color scheme, which is a pretty popular one. I'm using Fira Code for the font family, but you'll notice this little set of custom colors. One of the things that really bothered me, again, I'm like such a visual person, even though I'm talking about like the code development side of my work. This terminal, I love how it's an integrated terminal, but in most of the color schemes, including the popular Monokai scheme, if I comment this out, I'll show you what happens. This terminal just has the same exact color palette as the editor itself. It's almost impossible to visually tell the difference between where the code editor ends and the terminal window begins, So I added just a couple of tweaks on these colors. So terminal background, terminal cursor background, sidebar background, and panel background. And if I save that, it just darkens this up and it makes this bar sort of black, and it gives me that like visual separation between the code editor and the terminal. Super visually helpful, and it sort of like calms my brain a little bit when I'm looking through my code. So those are like my top tips on the workspace layout. Let's get into some of the other stuff. Using AI in Cursor. Obviously, that's sort of the main event when you're talking about Cursor. Just a couple of notes on how I'm using AI in Cursor. The first thing, as you start to get, if you start out using Cursor, you'll quickly learn that there are essentially like 2 ways to pull up the AI chat and use the AI chat in Cursor. One is to use the sidebar. And again, yours might be on the right side, but I switched my setting to have it on the left side. I'm going to pull up a controller. I'm going to hide my terminal. So I prefer to use the sidebar for my AI chat interface rather than the inline one. So you can do Command Shift K to pull up the AI like right in line. But I find like this is a little bit difficult to read and navigate. And I know you can make it bigger and everything, and it sort of like covers up the code. I don't really like that. I much prefer to just think of the sidebar as like literally like an assistant, like a person that I'm like turning to ask a question. And then it, like, please refactor this controller, right? So it'll give me this thing. I could sort of like read it here, and then I can see the changes here, and then I will apply them, and then I can see all the lines that have been changed. And typically I'll review each individual line that was changed. And a lot of times I'll just accept all of them with command return. Yeah, I think command return. But you can accept individual ones by hovering over and doing accept or reject. So you can do that. I'm not going to actually make those changes. So I really like that method of editing, and I really treat it like I'm talking to or I'm collaborating with an assistant, and I'll say things like, "Can you make these changes to this file?" And give me multiple changes to make all in one shot rather than like the line by line changes. So the other thing that you'll start to see very quickly is as you start to type, it does autocomplete or auto suggest things to do. That can be a blessing and a curse. It does speed things up, and a lot of times it reads my mind the way that I want it to read my mind, but a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times it suggests something that I don't want to actually write in code. So let's say it just suggested this line, but I don't want to actually type that line, but I do want to hit a tab. That's something that gets really annoying if you want to just use the regular tab key to make a regular tab rather than using tab to accept the suggested line from the AI. I'm going to undo that. What I did was I added a keyboard shortcut. Yeah, right here. Control tab. And so, by the way, I'm looking in my open keyboard shortcuts JSON file. So if you do Command Shift P and search for that, you'll get to your JSON file where you can customize your keyboard shortcuts for cursor. So this is the one that I added. It's Control plus Tab, and that basically just gives you a regular tab. So if we are in a file like this and it's giving me a suggestion, but I don't want to use that suggestion, I just want to make a tab, I'll use Control Tab, and that gives me a regular tab. I can do Shift Tab to go back. So that's really helpful, especially when I see there's an auto completion that I don't want to actually use. That's a good tip right there. Some keyboard shortcuts. Now I've already kind of covered some of these. These are sort of like my top 5 that I use all the time. There's many more that I use a lot in my workflow, but I just wanted to kind of highlight the ones that that are burned into my brain at this point. So the first one is toggling the AI. For me, that's Command L. I think that's the default when you start using cursor. So I like Command L all the time to pop it open, pop it closed. The other reason why I like the sidebar over the inline AI is it has this previous chat, so I can always pull up something that I was working on earlier in the day and continue that chat rather than start a new one. So that's popping over the AI. The next one, of course, is popping over open the terminal, Command T. So that's Command T. On Windows, it's probably Control T all the time, all day long, open and close on the terminal. The File Explorer, if I want to open and close it, it's Command B. But if I just want to focus it, so I usually leave it open again, but if I just want to focus it, it's Command Shift E. And then to sort of jump up and down, it's Command Up. And then I go down to close these and open them. You'll use the left arrow or the right arrow to open it. And then you can click the first letter of the folder to jump up and down in the list. My goal in general is try to stay away from using the mouse and use the keyboard as much as possible. And it takes a lot of getting used to sort of burn these keyboard shortcuts into your memory, into your muscle memory. But I definitely recommend doing it. You'll be surprised. It really just takes a day or two of consciously trying to use the keyboard and not the mouse. And then eventually you just start to do it second nature. It not only makes you faster, it really helps reduce, I've had some wrist pain and some back pain from overusing the mouse. You can get away from the mouse and stick to the keyboard. It's much more ergonomic and better for your back and your wrist, and I highly recommend you do it. Opening the AI, that's Command L. Opening the terminal, Command T. The File Explorer, Command B. Tabbing through recent files, I also covered this one already. For me, that's Command P. You can search for a file. It's got fuzzy search, of course. But you can just go up and down and find your recent ones, or just Command P once to get to the most recent file and go back and forth. Let's go into the terminal itself. So I'm going to close this. Now the terminal, a lot of times I have 2 or 3 terminal tabs opened. Command T to just open up the terminal, but then let's say I need a second one. Instead of using the mouse and clicking this plus, I can do Command Shift right bracket, and that will add a second terminal. And then I can do it again to add a third. And then I can do Command Shift bracket, left bracket and right bracket, to tab between them. Really, really helpful. I do it all the time. So I'm doing Command T to get in there, and then I can tab between them with Command Shift bracket. And if I need a new one, I'll do Control Shift bracket. Again, something that like you'll find yourself just clicking this a lot. And as soon as I start to see myself like clicking something with the mouse really frequently, I'm going to try to spend a day to really consciously burn the keyboard shortcut into my memory. Really, really helpful. All right, so I talked about my keyboard shortcuts. Let's talk about, and this is going to be the last item here on the list, that's terminal aliases. This works for any app, not just Cursor, but of course I'm using it in Cursor because I use the integrated terminal in Cursor. I use a lot of terminal aliases. I define these in my ZSHRC file. If you're using Bash, then it's your Bash RC file or your Bash profile file or your ZSH profile file. I know a lot of people like to edit these using Vim. I'm not a fan of Vim, so I literally just open up the file in my file explorer, which you can get to in your folder here, show hidden files. That's Command Shift period, and you'll find it in there. I'm not going to go through all of the craziness that I kind of dump into my ZSHRC file, but this is the file where I define all of my little aliases that I do in Terminal. And I want to highlight the ones that I use like 1,000 times a day. Starting with the Git commands, every time I want to git add, let's say I started, making this register method, I'm going to save it. I can, instead of doing git add, I can just do git a. So I've just added the file to Git. The next thing that we would do after that is commit the change, right? So normally you would do something like git commit. I think it's like m message, this is my message, something like that. That's a lot to type. So what I do is GC. And if it's a one word update, like sometimes I'm really bad, especially if it's only me working on my projects and I just want to quickly commit something without really writing a whole message. I'll just do like GC update, which is a really terrible git commit message. But most of the time, especially when I'm working with my teammates, I will write a more descriptive, commit message, like starting the register method. And of course, this is not a complete feature, so I wouldn't normally be committing it yet, but just to show you. So if I do that, I just committed that with the message. And then the next and final step would be to push this. So normally I would do like git push to push to my remote repository on GitHub. All I need to do is GP. And that's my alias in Terminal for doing that. Again, these aliases can apply in the regular Terminal app or in VS Code or in Sublime Text, or Sublime isn't a Terminal app, or if you're using like Terminal Plus or whatever, you can do all that. But I'm using it right here in Cursor. Couple other Git commands. Let's see. Git push. Oh yeah, Git branch. So if I want to start a new branch, so let's do, normally I would do like Git branch, new branch, something like that. Instead, I can just do GB, new example branch. And so now I'm on a new branch. And by the way, you can see how I've already also customized my Terminal prompt. I do the name of my project followed by the current branch that I'm on in parentheses. And that's a customization that I put in here as well. I'm not going to get into that right now. That could be another video for another day. All right, so now I'm on the new example branch, and let's see. I'll switch to the PR one. So I'm on the branch, and I'm going to make a edit, and I'm going to save that, and I'm going to git add, git commit, clean up. And since that's like a one-word thing, I can just do GC cleanup. And let me actually show you the line for that. GC is where? Yeah, so that's this one. GC git commit message, and this $1 sort of inserts the message. That's how that one works. And I'm going to commit that. I'm going to push it with GP. And now let's say I've made a bunch of changes and I want to create a pull request and then open up that pull request on GitHub. That's a whole command, and it's kind of complicated, and it looks something like this. You can do like, this uses the GitHub CLI. So like I'm creating a PR, and then I'm giving it a body and a title, and then I'm opening it in the browser. Instead, all I need to do is do GPR example PR. And you would give it a more descriptive title than this. Example PR, I'm going to hit return. And what that does is it creates a PR, and then it opens that PR directly in the browser. It's ready for me to, review my PR here, review all the commits, and I can merge it just like that. So that's a really easy one. And then the last one that I use, well, not the last one here, but in terms of Git commands that I use often is Git checkout. So if let's say one of my teammates started a new branch and I have not checked it out on my machine yet, I'll do you would normally do something like Git checkout branch name. I just do GC branch name. And I use linear with my team. That's it. Maybe I'll do another whole video on how we use linear for our managing our development tasks and stuff. Linear has a really great integration with GitHub, so that with each issue, there's a keyboard shortcut to copy the branch name from linear. So it's a really easy workflow for me to get the branch name from there with a keyboard shortcut, and come in here and just type in GC, pop in, paste in the branch name, and then pull it down. Okay, a couple other shortcuts that I do in the terminal. Let's go into switch branches. This is a really cool one. I think at some point I might do a dedicated video on this. I built out a system with the help of AI to allow me to very easily switch between my branches. So normally you can do something like, Git branch? That will list out all of your branches, but it doesn't give you an easy way to actually switch between them. So what I have here is GBL. If I just do that, it gives me the list of branches, and then I can use the arrow keys to switch between them, and then return. And I just switched to the staging branch. GBL again, and I'll switch to the redesign branch. GBL again, and now I'm on main. So I love this command. I use it every single day, 1,000 times. It's a little bit complicated to set up. It uses, I'll just give you a quick overview. It uses this fuzzy Git functions plugin thing. I'll need to unpack the details and put together a full tutorial on it. So it's using these things, and then calling that function with the GBL. And then I have another one, GBD, which is a similar thing, which allows me to delete branches, both locally and on GitHub if I need to. That's switching branches. Last one is restarting the server. So this one is specific to Ruby on Rails. And lately I do a lot of work in Ruby on Rails 8 with Stimulus.js and Tailwind CSS. And so, to run a Rails server, and this happens to be a Rails project, I would normally do, .bin dev to run the server, and C to stop the server. But a lot of times, especially when I make changes to Tailwind CSS, like in the style sheets or in the markup, and I'm using new classes that I haven't used before, in order to get the styles to show up in the project, I often need to stop the server and then do Rails assets clobber, and then Rails assets precompile, and then bin dev to actually see the latest changes that I've made in Tailwind and sometimes in the JavaScript if that stuff is new. So to streamline that whole dance, which was multiple commands, I created one just called RR, refresh or restart, or I don't know what RR means, but it's really easy and fast for me to just do that. That's going to clean the assets and then precompile the assets and then start the server for me all in one shot. Really fast, really easy, and really helpful. So let me find that line in here. Yeah, here you go. RR calls the Rails refresh function, and the refresh function will clean the assets, precompile the assets, and start the server. Nice and easy for me. Now, I know just last week they just released Hotwire reloading for Rails 8, something I actually haven't dug into yet. I'm going to check that out, and maybe that makes this whole restart of the server sort of moot and unneeded. But anyway, that's a look at my my use of Cursor. I'm recording this right at the end of 2024 as I head into 2025. My workflow and my shortcuts are changing all the time, so I wouldn't be surprised if I do an update on this video sometime later in the year. But I would love to know if you have any special workflow tips or tricks that might seem weird to other people, but they really work for you. I would love for you to drop a comment below, because I'm always looking for kind of hot tips to speed up and make things more efficient in Cursor. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.